let's start. 1, 2, 3. Back again. And this time it's time for a zine review, though I do not know if calling this a zine properly does justice to the project in question, which I'm proud to say is Robin Bougie's Gutter Hunter, his new endeavor. If you trawl around our particular subcultures, Robin Bougie doesn't need an introduction. I will put the name across the bottom because I did research on how to pronounce Robin's name, and in newer interviews he's referred to as Robin Bougie, but there's an old clip from '93 which is a newscaster doing the pronunciation. We all know how much they actually care, but he pronounces it Bougie. So I'm not quite sure. I do believe it's Robin Bougie. So that out of the way. If you've been following anything, you've known about Cinemasour. I mean, this is his zine that's been going on 25 years now, I think. He announced that, that was my yo-yo, by the way. He announced that his last issue there, number 34, would be the last one that he was doing, which kind of threw me for a loop because I look forward to each and every episode of Cinemasour because Robin takes a deep dive into a lot of shit that I just have never heard of. And I watch a lot of films, you know that. But each issue, it came out yearly, approximately. And it's a beautiful hand-lettered zine. Later on, I'll show you what's going on with that. But yeah, just an utter inspiration. Because unlike a lot of people who deliberately go for obscure films just because they're obscure, he covered great films. I mean, yeah, they're trash. You know, trash is treasure. So, you know, I mean, I never would have seen Lady Terminator, or, you know, just a ton of stuff. And his interviews with people who were involved with the early porn industry when it was still shot on film. I mean, he just does everything. And he also releases other projects, such as erotic comics by different creators and stuff like that. And every time I bought a Cinemasour every year, I'd pick up a couple issues of whatever else he had. So Cinemasour leaving my life, it felt like there was going to be a big vacant hole in there. But I need not fear because Robin announced something even more dear to my heart. The same approach as Cinemasour, but detailing Overlook Comics. And when I say Overlook Comics, there was one comic within this entire issue that I had actually read before. And I've been reading comics forever, and specifically underground comics, and he was pulling stuff out that just blew me away. And let me put this down. I'll put like a good picture up over here. What I love about reading Robin's stuff is he's a brilliant cartoonist who combines the personality of a zine. And there, you saw it was full size. It's this huge, and everything inside is hand lettered. I mean, it's amazing. I absolutely adore everything about it. Gutter Hunter, I bought it when it was announced, and I'm just now getting around and do this review because I just finished it this morning. This thing is huge. I'm not sure how many pages are in this. Does he number them? No, he does not. But there are a lot of pages in this to get through. I'm only briefly going to cover a few things because it's just so full. But he talks and interviews to comics creators who are just overlooked. And I mean, it's wonderful because your normal superhero fan is just dismissive. Anything that's erotic in comics is pushed to the side. You have to know that it exists. I remember when Eros was running, that was one of Fantagraphics sub-labels, I guess you would call them. Little distributions they set up for erotic comics, especially with the black and white boom of the 90s. But Robin digs way deeper than even that. I mean, one of the first things that you'll run across is Larry Fuller's White Horror Funnies, which was done in the mid-70s. And to give some reference, which Robin does in this, in 1978, Larry Flint was shot. And I'd always heard the story as it was just somebody who was upset because he was someone who published porn. Well, actually, the man who shot him, Joseph Paul Franklin, shot him because he ran a spread that featured a black male and a white female. And it was called Butch and Peaches. And that's what set him off. Not so much the porn per se, but the fact that he showed interracial porn and it was a black male, which really sent somebody off there. So I didn't know that, and I consider myself, what do you say, a connoisseur? But I thought I knew a lot of this history, and his interview with Larry Fuller it's amazing because nobody else is going to do this. Nobody's going to track this person down and interview them about a comic that was called White Horror Funnies. And I mean, there's only one panel I can show you this, and probably even just the name of it will get me, but like, I'm worried about being demonetized. Hell, I can't even get monetized. So it's not really an issue, but I'll just put up the one that we can. And I immediately wanted to track down every issue of this because it was just amazing. Another thing that he talks about is Jeremy Spencer, who in 1971 was the guitarist and lead singer for Fleetwood Mac, like one of the biggest bands on the planet. And he has some fun with recreational pharmaceuticals, ends up leaving Fleetwood Mac to join a cult called Children of God, which you may have heard of. You may, look up Rose McGowan, any of that type of thing. You'll find Children of God. So he renounces his rock and roll lifestyle and becomes a born-again Christian in the Children of God cult, which involves a lot of kitty diddling and that type of thing. Robin does a good job of covering this, and he creates a 4-page comic called Hard Rock Bands to show everybody the dangers of rock and roll, because obviously pedophilia for God's okay, but rock and roll is a little bit dangerous. Do you feel like we're in the 80s? It's so wonderful the way that he does this. And another one that I really loved was, and this was a comic I had read before, and I believe this was because I was living in Seattle, late 80s, early 90s, and it was put out by Fantagraphics, and that's Julian Lawrence's comic, Crucial Fiction, and he interviews Julian Lawrence, and it's a wonderful interview in there. And the way that he talks about the transition to what really interested him as an artist and how they went about their process of getting stuff released in industry, because this is pre-internet times. Amazing interview. Another great one, Mark Hansen's Dr. Gorpon. Had no idea about this. This is like Ren and Stimpy on steroids. I mean, look at the art style. I really love the very over-exaggerated cartoony style, and this was just eye candy to me. It reminded me when I first saw Ratfink, and it was actually in metal magazines, because in the 80s, I can't even remember the name of them, but one of them ran Ratfink, and that was the first time I saw him, and I was just immediately in love. I drew Ratfink on everything. I mean, Ratfink and Eddie from Iron Maiden, those were like my go-to things, and then I discovered Pusshead, but I digress. Next up, another one that I also loved was Tim Grant with his comic Off Kilter, and one of the things I really love about Robin's stuff is when he does he does cartoons and portraitures of the creators, and I really love those times when they show up, because he has that brilliant way with caricature that you feel like you're actually seeing the personality. It's not like, right now I'm reading Rothko's book, and he talks about how portrait painters, you have to flatter the subject, and I feel as if Bougie, whatever, is capturing the essence of the person within his drawings. And The interview with him about Off Kilter, oh my god, I want to track down every issue of Off Kilter because I was dying just reading the little snippets that he puts in and the story. I mean, it was so good. And one of the beautiful things about Robin and his research into this is if the person who made these comics has died or passed on, Robin's very good about contacting their relatives or somebody who's interested in keeping their work alive. And a brilliant example of this is Art Weatherall, who did a comic called Two Hot Girls on a Summer Night. And this was done on Eros, which once again I said was the Fantagraphics thing. So I may have seen it, because I remember, you go to the comic stores and you have to ask for the box, where it's off. It was kind of like when you used to go to video stores and everything, all the good shit was behind the curtain, you know what I mean? But yeah, in the case of Art, he talks to his daughter Catherine, because sadly Art has passed on. And Art's style was classic. I mean, you look at it, it's classic pinup. It's so well done. And she's actually started up an Instagram page where she posts her father's work. And I highly recommend that. I'll put that in the description below. And it's not just Gutter Hunter focusing on these lost and forgotten comics. He also has, Robin's always great, and this is when I talk about the personal. He has different people sending their stories of having to deal with comic book store employees, which, yeah, there's a reason there's that character on The Simpsons, because it's way too true, unfortunately. But it's a beautiful thing to know you're not alone in this. And so they share their stories of dealing with comic book store clerks or comic book stores that don't price all of their stuff and then just kind of make it up randomly as you take the book to the front of the store. And I especially appreciated Robin's last rant, because he always has a rant in there and they're always great. But he has this beautiful rant about, of course, working for the big two. And no, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's eye-opening. And once again, I thought I had this down. I thought I knew it, and man, does he surprise me. So if, like myself, you love Cinemasour and you were disappointed by the announcement that it was coming to a close, oh my god. I'm not going to say it's better, but it's continuing on the same work. And once again, it's a subject near and dear to my heart. I would say even if you're not interested in comics, because most of it's superhero stuff, and it's not even good superhero stuff anymore. That's the heartbreaking thing. But if you have any interest at all, drop the $12 into the mail. I'll put the link to where you can buy it. Grab some of his other stuff while you're there. I mean, make the shipping worthwhile. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. If only for the story of how he came about with the cover to this. I love that. Anyways, love you guys. Thank you so much for putting up with my rambling, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.